a lot of people use prenups before they tie the knot, in particular, really rich people. But what about the average person? Should they get a prenup? Let's talk to somebody whose job it is to, well, give people advice about that. Jennifer Hargrave is a divorce attorney. She joins us on the wake-up call. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. A pleasure to have you with us. Have you ever in your career written up a prenup agreement with something as ridiculous as, if you gain weight, I'm going to charge you for it?
I am happy to say I have not. But I will tell you, I've had clients come to me with some interesting requests that they would like to have in the prenup. And, when I'm working with them, I have to ask them, if you feel like you need to have a written and binding contract to secure all these requests, are you sure you really want to get married, right? Because what we need to be talking about is how can you structure your life so you have the best marriage possible. I don't think anybody goes into marriage thinking that, I need to have a written statement here about how many times we're going to have sex or how much weight you can put on. I don't think that's conducive to a good marriage. So a lot of times we'll have those discussions in the negotiation process, and my clients will typically think twice about that.
Well, let's talk about, basic prenuptial agreements. And it is to protect one's asset going into the marriage if a divorce should ever happen at a later date. What about folks that are not rich, maybe middle class, but they say to themselves, I own this house, or I own this coffee kiosk, and I've worked for it, and if anything happens, I want to keep it. Is that a fairly common, prenup kind of agreement amongst folks that aren't worth billions of dollars like Mark Zuckerberg?
Yes. Really, most of the time what a premarital agreement does, and what it does well, is define your rights to property. Because you know what? Your marriage is going to end one way or another. It's either going to end by divorce or it will end by death. And a well-crafted premarital agreement will help bring clarity and resolution to those issues to make sure that your property is protected in the event of either. A lot of people who come in asking for a premarital agreement are people who have been married before, and maybe they have children, or they've been working and have acquired quite a list of assets that they do want to protect. But it can also be a really good time to get clarity, even if you've never been married and this is your first time and y'all don't have a lot of property. A well-done premarital agreement can be a great way to clarify at the outset, before you get into marriage, how financial responsibilities are going to be handled in the marriage. So no, it isn't just for rich people.
Well, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I would think that a lot of people would think, we're getting married because we love each other, and by signing a prenup agreement, then we're being fatalistic about how we think this marriage is going to turn out. Why even do it?
Sure, and of course, why negotiating your divorce before you get married is not the most romantic thing you can do as a married couple. I get that. But what I really try and help people understand is that, look, there is a body of law that tells you how you're going to own property. And if you don't do anything, that law is what governs how you own property. And so many of us go into marriage having no idea what those property rights are. And listen, it varies from state to state, too. So it's going to depend on what state you're in when you die or when you get divorced as to how the property is going to be distributed. And a lot of people say, you know what we want to do is create a custom plan. We don't want just the default one-size-fits-all. We really want to think about this. We want to make sure that, that my wife is provided for if something happens to me, that she has access to the house that I owned before marriage, or, if we get a divorce, what does that look like? A lot of couples will, put in we call it like a bad boy clause or a bad girl clause, too, in terms of if there's infidelity, what are the consequences there? So I think really a premarital agreement is a great way for a couple getting married to have some of those difficult conversations conversations before they get married, and really they're having them at a time when they care about each other. And I always think that's a great added benefit to do that in a constructive way.
It almost sounds like what you're talking about is not only a prenuptial agreement, but estate planning as well, like, you know, a will or a trust or something like that, the way that I'm hearing you talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is possible and should be part of the premarital planning process, is to bring in a good estate planner to help make sure that your will is consistent with what your premarital agreement sets out. But the important thing is that what you don't want to do is leave your estate. If your marriage ends by death, you don't want to have your new spouse, whom you love, who's been by your bedside, and you've shared this great life together. You don't want to have her or him at odds with your children, right? And then you have this big battle. So part of that is accomplished with a premarital agreement. And also, I mean, you're exactly right. We do need to address estate planning in that as well.
Joining us on the Wake Up Call, it is Jennifer Hargrave. Jennifer, we appreciate you joining us on the Wake Up Call this morning, and you have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Jennifer Hargrave on the Wake Up Call.